but like a lot of rockers, he loves his work and has a ball making video clips like this remake of that Beach Boys classic, California Girls.
Thank you for joining us on Live at 5.
Oh, thank you very much, Jo. Good evening.
Oh, good evening. Listen, we've just seen the California Girls clip. Now, you purport to be a feminist, which means you can take the clip one of two ways. Either you're sending it up or you're exploiting women. Which is it?
Well, it's obviously a send-up, Jo, and what you probably just showed everybody who's watching this now is probably a 15 or a 20-second clip as opposed to from the beginning to the end. There's an actual scenario set up where there's a group of international tourists who are exposed to all the stereotypical images of the California beach scene or Hollywood in general, tinsel and glamour, etc. And the real sense of humor comes from the people's reactions to what they're seeing. And if you show the picture, then, hey, it's very obviously a send-up.
Is rock music involved with a lot of stereotypical images, particularly as far as women are concerned?
Oh, I think a lot of rock stars are afraid of women. I think a lot of rock stars, you know, you gotta have the woman in a go-go cage, welded together, strapped up, you know, and this I'm not for. That's sexist approach. But, hey, you know, how often do you find something that really rises above the crowd? Maybe 5% of the time. Why should rock music be any different than pro sports or politics?
You don't think that you're subscribing to any sort of stereotype with the gig you do on stage?
Oh, no, not at all. I show the balance. And a lot of times I take the sarcastic approach. Hey, that almost sounds Australian, doesn't it? And, you know, and you put everybody under the microscope, you know, with a little bit of that wry look, you know. And I like to laugh at these things as well as have a good time with them. And I'll go first.
It seems, though, that you take the outrageousness, the madness, very seriously. It's part of your marketing package.
Well, you know, most of this is reality, albeit a little bit enlarged, a little bit exaggerated, you know. And, hey, you know, selling something, you know, once it's out of the studio, once you've come out of the proverbial basement and created it, then, hey, let's sell it to death.
But what's more important, the marketing or the product? Because in some instances, it looks as though the marketing becomes the more important factor.
Oh, I think there's a whole list of Bon Jovis who have a difficulty with that, you know, but I'm not a beginner at this, and the whole thing really is in the music, and you make music true to your heart. You make the show true to what you really follow. If I was trying to, you know, do something with commercial success, I'd sound a lot more like Madonna, wouldn't I?
Oh, I guess you could. Now, you've said that the public doesn't want you to be normal. What do they want you to be?
Well, I think I think, you know, since we're quoting out of context here, is when I'm talking about being normal, I mean predictable. I mean so that you know what the end is. How many movies, Jo, have you been to where you sit there and in the middle of the movie you go, I know what happens to him. You know, music shouldn't be like that. A book shouldn't be like that. Pictures shouldn't be like that. I think what it is that you're just used to a lot of artists being like that.
Well, there are so many artists, and they've got so many individualistic styles. How do you keep ahead of them all with individuality?
You hit the button on the radio very often, and a lot of reading and a lot of going to shows. I don't know, it's not something you should force yourself into. And as far as competing with the rest of the crowd, I don't do that either. I find I learn more about what not to do 9 times out of 10.
Well, David, I'd like to wish you a happy birthday to wrap up this interview.
Well, thank you very much, Jo. You know, I did turn 33, and I can't think of a better place, you know, to do that. Technically, though, when I was supposed to turn 30, I did cross the international date line on my first flight to Sydney. I left on the 9th. Landed on the 11th, missed my 30th birthday entirely, so permanently youth, and man, this is just like paradise. It's just like paradise, and I don't wanna go home, and I ain't never going home. This must be just like living in paradise, just like paradise.
Living in Paradise with David Lee Roth, one of his hot hits. He's a pretty shy sort of a guy, David. He doesn't like to chat very much.